Look at me when I'm talking to you, kid. 3 words that cut sharper than the slap that follows, and the whole room goes quiet like someone pulled the plug on the world. That's where this starts: a greasy coffee counter, a cracked vinyl booth, sunlight slanting through cheap blinds, and a badge that thinks it owns the room. You watch one kid get struck, you watch a town decide whether to look down or look away, and you realize how fast a single choice can change everything. My name is Evan Brooks, and this is the story of how one stupid, violent moment in a small-town diner cracked open a whole system that had been rusting from the inside out. Not heroic, not Hollywood, just real people scared and shaky trying to do the right thing when every official channel whispers, "Quiet." You know what I mean. Act 1. The hook. That afternoon, it was just me and my friends shooting the breeze after basketball practice, talking trash about Coach Jennings' face when Mario nailed that 3-pointer. Maggie's diner smelled like bacon and old coffee, the kind of place where the waitress knows your order before you sit down. We were laughing, nothing fancy, just friends, when Officer Tom Grady stomped in. He had that look, the kind you see on people who think the world owes them respect. He came right over, chest out, hands on his belt, and in front of everyone said, "You think you're funny, kid?" I shrugged. He slapped me, hard, so hard my head bounced off the window. My cheek burned. My water tipped over. The jukebox cut out. Silence fell heavy as a door. He leaned in close, that stupid smirk, and said, "Next time I see you laughing, I'll remind you who runs this town." People looked at their phones, at their cups, at anything but us. Maggie, the owner, went to the corner and pointed to the little black dome camera she'd just installed last month, the red light blinking like an accusation. "It's on tape," she said. For a second, I thought maybe something would happen. Maybe someone would step up. Instead, 2 uniformed officers strolled in like they didn't notice a thing, and the room slid back toward normal as if the slap was a weather hiccup. When my dad walked in, he didn't come in with a badge out and a shout. He came in quiet, like a tide that knows its strength. His name's Samuel Cortez. He works federal, not local, and for him the world is rules and evidence and patience. He put his hand on my shoulder, looked at Maggie, and asked to see the footage. That small action, asking to see the footage, lit the fuse. The people who'd been whispering messaged him in private. "We saw that, but we're scared." It's amazing how many people will tell you everything behind closed doors and nothing with the door open. Act 2. The grind and the turning point. My dad started collecting things like a man building a case out of a dozen broken pieces, photos, receipts, shaky witness statements written on napkins, bank records that didn't line up, emails that vanished, a judge who tossed complaints like unwanted mail. He found patterns. Not just one bad cop, but a small machine of protection. Officer Grady, a chief who turned a blind eye, a judge who dismissed cases for lack of evidence, and money moving through shell companies like oil slicks that kept mechanisms greased and quiet. Then someone tried to tear that case apart. Maggie's security system got ripped out overnight, wires hanging like pulled veins. Reports went missing at the station. The county judge suddenly couldn't locate files. The Department of Justice initially told Dad they'd look into it. A real breath of hope. But then, out of nowhere, the inquiry got pulled. A call from someone with enough money and influence waved a hand and the gears froze. And just when we thought we had a friend inside the system, a quiet deputy named Ben Morales, who slipped Dad a thumb drive with the original footage, ended up beaten nearly to death on a park bench. He was the one who broke the silence. They broke him back. That moment, when everything you thought would protect you fails, is where people either fold or fight in a different way. Dad folded strategy into stubbornness. He knew the law could be bent with money, but money couldn't erase metadata rental records or the sound of men on tapes confessing to moves they thought were private. He went digging where they thought no one would look: storage units rented under fake names, bank ledgers with tiny suspicious transfers, car rental receipts, even careless radio chatter recorded by a directional mic he'd installed near the police lot. He found the pattern repeated. Evidence deleted, backups wiped, and one officer saying on tape, "We got the drive. Riker's keeping the original." When he traced a storage unit rented under Tom Richards, close enough to be dumb and far enough to be plausible, there it was, the original drive wrapped in bubble wrap like contraband, humming with the truth. Everything changed the day federal agents showed up with warrants. I sat in a car across the street with my dad watching people who used to think they were untouchable get led out in handcuffs. Officer Grady's face went from smug to pale in seconds. The chief tried to bargain with his dignity, but dignity's worthless when the law's standing on your shoulders. People came out, old neighbors and quiet witnesses who had whispered to my dad months earlier, now standing in the sunlight watching justice do its clumsy human job. Act 3. The Aftermath and the Open Question. They arrested the Big Fish froze accounts, took files, and announced charges: civil rights violations, obstruction, conspiracy. A bunch of words that finally meant something. The town breathed. Maggie's Diner got a plaque. A scholarship was set up in my name. I couldn't believe it, me. And Dad got asked to help lead a new task force to prevent the rot from coming back. For a while, it felt like the healing you read about in movies. Neighbors hugging news vans, people telling their stories out loud without trembling. But here's the part that gets messy, and I want you to lean in. Because if you walk away thinking this was a neat little victory, you missed the point. Systems that grow rotten don't die overnight. The money trail led to a developer who thought his influence could buy silence. That guy got charged, but money finds new hands, new loopholes are spun, and fear takes a little longer to burn away than it took to light the match. Ben survived but couldn't speak for weeks. Some witnesses disappeared afraid of payback. The DOJ had been pressured before it ever really hit its stride. We won a battle, yes, but the war, against privilege, against the kind of protective loyalty that lets bad actors hide behind uniforms, that's a different animal. This whole thing isn't a feel-good moral wrapped in a bow. It's a messy, ongoing argument about who gets to be believed, who is protected, and who is punished. It's about a kid whose face was red from a slap becoming a symbol not because he wanted it, but because he became the center of a choice the town had to make: stay quiet or be brave enough to speak. So here's what I want from you at the end of this video. Tell me what you think. Was justice served, or did the system just swap out a few bad apples and keep the barrel intact? Have you ever seen something like this? A quiet town, a loud injustice, people too scared to speak. When you look at someone in a position of authority, how do you decide whether to trust them? Drop your story in the comments. Say whether you think we did the right thing, or whether this was just luck and timing. If you were in my shoes, would you have pushed the same way? What would you have done differently? If this moved, you share it. Not because I want the clicks, but because the real power here is in conversation. Talk to your neighbor, ask questions. Keep a camera in public places, not in a creepy way, but in a way that says, I'm watching and I care. If you have a similar story, tell it. If you disagree, tell it. I promise to read and respond. Sometimes people need to be heard more than they need to be fixed. And hey, if you want more stories like this, real people, messy truth, subscribe and stick around. We don't need to pretend the world is simple, but we can try to make it a little less unfair by refusing to look away.